Aloha mai kākou. You're tuned in to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, located on the beautiful island of Oahu. This is the Center for Teaching Excellence. We hope that you enjoyed today's podcast, and be sure to check us out on the web at www.cte.hawaii.edu.
Welcome, everyone. I am very excited and pleased to be able to be the one that starts you off on this series. I hope that you will come to the rest of it. I will tell you that when I came here in 1990, they just started doing this ministry program. And ever since, it's really taken off. And being able to come here and have different sessions to help you prepare for your tenure and promotion is really important. So I would congratulate you on building your career and getting started. It's very exciting. I have done this workshop a few times, so quite a few actually. This seems to be my second one. So I'm from over in the Educational Technology Department, and so I have kind of a varied past. I have a bachelor's degree in theater for the artsy side, and then a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages, so some of you might be TESOL, and then also my degree in instructional systems or educational technology. Okay. So today we're going to be absolutely talking about the art of creating an effective CD. But we're going to start with an activity. What I'm going to have you do is get into groups of 3, and we're going to pass out 3 different CVs. Now these CVs are based on original CVs that came to the grad division office when people were becoming grad faculty. So, but they're all, the names are changed to hide the innocent. Okay, so you're going to get 3 different ones. Different groups are going to get different ones. And what I want you to do is look for flaws in structure, utility, and aesthetics. Okay? So see if you can find things, sort of structure, utility, and aesthetics, sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you find them. Okay, so I'm going to have us pass them out, or you can pass them out. Good. And grab yourself a group in pairs or 3s will be good. All right, very good. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to each one. And so what I'd like to do is just have some volunteers tell me about each one. And so let's see. The first one is Wilhelmina neutrons. So anybody like to make a comment about Wilhelmina neutrons? Who had that one?
One thing I noticed, those research specializations, which there's like 4 there. Yeah, I almost kind of, because I'm not in that field, I almost kind of wanted to go, well, what do these mean? And could you narrow it down to 1 or 2? And is this helpful? I'm not sure. To me, it was. It's more confusing than anything else.
Oh, okay.
That was one thing. And then the way they listed the courses taught on the next few pages, it looks like they just clipped that in from like kind of a course management system thing, and it wasn't even structured very well. It was not aligned, it was not aesthetically pleasing.
Good. Well, I'll take those 2 and we'll move. We don't want them to get all of your stuff. So, okay. Okay, somebody else? Here you go.
There were a great many abbreviations, and the whole thing seemed like it was put together sort of perfunctorily, like they weren't really very serious about making a good impression.
That's right. Do you think it's important to make a good impression? For the grad division? Probably. Especially if this is going to go along with your dossier. Okay, anything else?
We noticed spelling errors, like address was spelled wrong, post was not fully, I mean, even though you're going to abbreviate it, right, with the right abbreviation, and then there was odd information like 100% FTE and so on in School of Engineering, Science, and Technology. That didn't seem like a necessary piece of information.
So how many of you would feel real good about promoting this person? Ooh, harsh. Okay, anything else? Okay.
With regards to aesthetics and structure, it was very difficult to read with the preponderance of parentheses all over the place. The formatting was not easy to read. Indentations would have helped in terms of structure, but it was not an easy read.
Okay, good. Yeah, you know, one to make your audience have difficulty with your stuff. Because believe me, I've been on tenure and promotion committees, and you've got a lot to do. And when it's really hard to find the stuff, you know, you get a little irritated, and that's not a good way to go through a dossier. Okay, good. All right, let's move on to the next one. How about John M. Wayne? Any comments on that one? Okay.
We thought it needed to be condensed more and a little focus. Sorry to be wrong.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, email address was the Duke.
Okay, good point. So it might have been a hangover from being in school. Okay, good. I had one back there, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
John Wayne uses very inconsistent formatting, so he bolds some things and underlines others. And then he also has a strange sense of, sort of the way a CV should unfold, right? So he's putting, I mean, at least I think so, right? Special awards, fellowships, honors first, professional associations. I think that he should front load some other, maybe more important things.
Okay, good. Up here.
That was sort of my recommendation too, is I'm not sure if there is a set recommendation in terms of what you're supposed to start with, but I would certainly start with education or positions held, and then go into publications, words and things like that. Also, if you have a whole lot of publications, I wonder if there's some way of focusing on the most prestigious ones or condensing things down somewhat and then having an addendum that lists everything you have.
Good. We'll talk a lot about the structure and thinking about that. Any last comments?
Yeah, we talked about the similarity between universities and corporations. In corporations, you're told you have your CV on 2 pages, your resume on 2 pages, so you can reach capacity of profile. I'm not sure, I hope that university doesn't allow like that yet, but they might be moving in that direction, in which case this is really too long. Also, I agree with every other comment in that the front-loaded stuff is, professional association should be at the end. I was saying, all you should do is pay money to be a professional association. What are you doing? And I mean, I pay money, I mean, that's bad. And look at the grants, way at the back, the grants are key next to under special awards and things like that. So the important stuff should come first. Also, the formatting is awful. Everything is left justified, and you can't have anything except it's non-academic positions, which doesn't make any sense.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that you guys are getting into this, because these were from Maryland, believe it or not. Okay, let's see, Georgia Bush. Think of that one. Okay, anybody?
Well, it wasn't organized like this. Talk about some publications and then go to employment and back to publications. And there didn't seem like it was presented in any sort of sections. And you just had to read the whole thing, otherwise you didn't know what you did.
Okay, anybody else?
Trying to be used by critics to find bad critics, but then doesn't carry through with it the whole time either, and it's actually impossible to be provide. So some of that stuff, and I agree with the publications just hanging there, but then books is underlined, and on the bottom memberships is bold, and on the next page you got capital N underlined. I wasn't following the structure at all.
Good. And that's really culturally important here if you haven't gotten that message yet, because blind right critical marks. And there is a way to put it into your software to make sure that you can do that. So you might want to check with ICS, they're really good about doing that, and you can load them so that you have those available. That's important. Okay, oops, sorry. Anything else?
There's two different addresses also. There's 2 CDs and 1.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah, those kind of mistakes don't really do well. Okay, anyone last thing? Okay, not going to move on. Okay, first of all, what do you call the silly thing? And somebody talked to me about this one time when I was giving the workshop. So here's the way it works. Vita is singular. So you can say my Vita. Okay? But vitae is plural, so you can say our vitae. So when you're talking about vertical. And then the problem is that once you add the word curriculum, it goes back to singular. I haven't quite figured out why the Latins did that. Okay, call it a CV, or do you? Dan, would you?
So I'm a Latin professor. So what it means is sort of course of one's life, right? Vitae or vitae means of, it's sort of inherent in the spelling.
Okay, so then once you put curriculum on there.
It hinges upon curriculum, so it's a course of life, how your life is unfolded.
Good to know. Thank you. See, I learn something every time I come here. Perfect. Okay, so it's good to know that in case you have a Latin professor that learns. Okay, you were talking earlier about a resume. Let me just talk to you about that a little bit. A resume is different from a CV, and it depends on what you're doing. And so what's required here is a CV. So let me talk about the difference. A CV is really, a resume is a short introduction to yourself, more like 1 to 3 pages. It's focused specifically on your skills and your work experience for a specific job. It's a lot more concise, you can imagine, than CV. It's also more general, so it can be sort of aimed at any audience that you're applying for. It's stylish and avant-garde, so you can go with the latest style of a resume, and that's fine. Compared to a CV, and so it really is your complete academic life, and that's what he was saying earlier. It's everything, unless you're asked for something shorter. So for example, when you apply for a travel grant here, they ask for a 5-year CV, or your last 5 years. So you'll often have to split up your CV, but your real CV can be very long, and mine is right now tiny font and 32 pages. So if I print it out in 12 point, it's huge. And it's because I use it a lot like a filing cabinet. So I keep everything there because you never know if you're applying for a grant, they want the full CV. If you're applying for travel, they want 5 years. So I just keep it all in this one document and keep it updated as best I can. I don't do it as well as I'd like. Okay, so it's focused on your educational credentials and related experience for a particular type of position. And since you are all in a particular position now, that would of course be your position. And it includes specific works in a bibliography. And it is traditional, academic, and stuffy. When I first applied for this job, I had been working on some newsletters, and I thought it'd be really cool for my application to be like a newsletter, and I would talk about the different things I could do. And I went and told one of my professors, who's kind of a leader in the field, and he looked at me and goes, "No," he said, "do it like this. Faculty are stuffy. No fun stuff. Just do it really straight on." So I learned to do it, and my background is in visual design, so that's one of the reasons that I keep being asked to do this. Okay, so this is what my original resume looked like when I came here, and this is what my original CV looks like. Okay, so you can kind of see the difference. One focused on skills and another focused on the positions. All right. In fact, in the materials that are online, you will find all of that. You will find my original CV, my original resume, but you'll also find a current CV for me as well. And I've recently updated my website, which also has that on there. Okay, so now let's look at the difference between a dossier and a CV. In your dossier, you're going to be putting things that are focused on a specific position, again. You want to use clear language, though, because this is going to go across the street to people who are not in your field and have no clue what your field does. And so they've got to be able to understand what you do without you using any jargon. So you want to speak directly to the criteria and provide answers. They're going to be matching your dossier with the criteria that you receive both in your department as well as the university criteria. Okay? But you also want to be brief. I know that sounds crazy, but you do. They really try to cut it back to 10 pages. Oddly, though, people are still, kind of having huge dossiers, which is really hard on a committee, I can tell you that. You really want to put your best foot forward. And this is very hard to do, I think. We're not really used to talking about ourselves, and that's probably one of the hardest things about doing a dossier is learning to talk about yourself effectively. So you have to find a balance. You don't want to be too humble, but you also don't want to be too inflated. So figuring out what that is and getting some friends to look over and read it before you even turn it into your departmental committee is probably a good idea. Okay, so some of the things that go in it are your teaching expertise and maybe your teaching philosophy, the importance of your research, and one of the things that I advise people writing these is to find words. If you don't want to say, you can say, my research is important, but sometimes that's hard to do. You might want to say, I was very honored, to be chosen as da-da-da-da-da. I was thrilled that my article was accepted into this important journal. So there are ways to talk about yourself in a little bit different way than saying, yeah, these are great. But these are really important articles, but you need to use words like important, honored, proud, so that they get the point that you're really good. Because you are really good, right? Or you wouldn't be here. Okay, good. Just want to make sure you may as well leave if you're not really good. Okay, service described. So you're going to describe the most important service. We do a lot of service. Like you were saying, a lot of us can join organizations, but what do we do? Do we really actually serve those organizations, or do we just, pay the money? Okay. The other thing that needs to come through in a dossier is the confidence that you are deserving of the promotion. So the whole tone of it is a feeling of confidence, that you're not shy about going up because you're ready. Okay? It's very important to do your homework. Figure out exactly what needs to go into that document and do it well, and then get an editor. Get somebody to help you and look at it to make sure, because you're really close to it. And a lot of errors can crop up. No matter how many times I look at my CV, I still find errors in it. Okay? All right, next. When you talk about the CV, it's a little bit different because the CV is continuing and ongoing. It's a complete list of your academic achievements and other relevant information, okay? Such as your educational background, and whoever said, yes, that should go first. In an academic institution, it does. Now, if you were in a corporation, you probably wouldn't put education first. But in an academic institution, that usually is what you do. So you want to put your relevant experience and skills. Probably you put that somewhere more in the professional development section. You also will have a bibliography, your professional development, your teaching experience, service. You can also put languages and travel. This is one of the things that people get impressed with a lot because faculty tend to travel. So if you do travel, you can talk about that, or you can have a section. You'll notice it in mine because I'm a travel addict, so I put all of my travel in there. Okay? The next thing is talk about your courses, and I'll show you some examples of these in a minute. Okay? Your research interests listed. Okay. But also do your homework. Get an editor. Same thing. But each of these should stand alone. You don't want to say in your dossier, on page 5 of my Vita, here's this. Okay, so you don't want people to have to go back and forth. They're going to look separately at each of those documents. Even though they're sandwiched together, one of the things that they often do first is go straight to the straight to the CV, because they want to see what you've done and sort of judge for themselves whether they think you're worthy, and then they start reading the dossier. At least that's what my experience has been. Okay? So if you're just beginning, how long do you do this? Okay? So you have to really understand the academic persona and what that means, what's expected of you. And talking to other people, coming to the series is really important, so you'll get a lot of information from other faculty who have a lot of experience. So the more voices that you can hear, I mean, you wouldn't believe how many sessions I came to. Not only up until I got tenure promotion, but then afterwards. I really had a tenure plan. I said, I'm going to do it this, and then I'm going to do that. Never stop moving until you get to be full. I mean, that's one of the best pieces of advice I have. So get help. The other thing is, you get uncomfortable about whether you're boasting or not. But you really do want to put your best foot forward. One of the problems is a lot of times we work in teams. So there's a real tendency to say, in our team, we did this. And we use the we word a lot. You can't do that in a dossier. They don't care what your team did. They're not promoting your team. They're promoting you. So you have to use the I word. I and me, okay? Not we and our. So you have to change that. So if you were in collaborations, you can talk about your team. I work in a team of people and my role is. Okay, so you have to talk about what your role in the team is. They want to see what you accomplish. Okay? And do you have enough? If you look at mine, it's huge. Well, I have been here 24 years, so hopefully it is huge. It's expected to be. So don't look at mine and try to match your CV to what I have, because that's not going to work. You've really got to create your own CV that works for your field, okay? Because some of that structure you were talking about has a lot to do with the field that you're in, what's important to people in your field. And so figuring out what that is. So you have to create your own CV that works for you. Okay, so what if I'm not good enough? Well, that's a problem. Make sure you know the criteria and know the position, and don't go up until you're ready. But be ready. Know now, today, what the criteria is. Set yourself goals so that you know that you're ready. Don't wait until the last minute and go, "Woo, I need to prepare," because that's going to be too late. It takes years to do this and years to prepare. But also, we appreciate the emerging scholar. We were all there once. It takes a while to develop a personal vita that's long. Okay, so you want to work up to that, and you want to demonstrate that in your dossier and in your vita. Okay, if you want to stop me for questions along the way, feel free. You're looking a little freaked out there. Yeah, there you go.
Just simply, what is the difference between a CV and a dossier?
Okay. A dossier is going to be a narrative. Okay. That's a good question. I didn't even think of that. Oh, most people knew what that was. That's a very good question. A dossier you will prepare by writing about yourself and who you are. So it's kind of a narrative version of a CV, but you're picking out the most important things. The CV has everything, okay? But the dossier, you're picking out the key things that will get you promoted, the key things that are important in that dossier. One of the great things that this organization has done is they've collected exemplary dossiers and CVs, and you have them available in this room. You can come and sit and look at them. And in addition to looking at ones that are in your field, you might want to look at some that are out of field. So you can get a sense of what it's like to be a committee member and look at something that's out of field. I mean, I'm in education, and I was looking at dossiers from medicine a lot this year. Medicine and engineering, I've done all kinds of them. So you have to be able to understand what people are saying when you're out of field. Okay. Very good. Okay, next. Will I be bugging them? One of the things that you need to do is be a squeaky wheel. You need to ask people. You need to get help. I'm assuming we still have a mentoring program, right?
We do.
Okay.
That's what's sponsoring this.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So if you want a personal mentor to help you through the process, you can talk to Kathy, and she will set you up with somebody like me that will be your personal mentor. Now, it will be somebody that's out of your field, because that way you can have nice conversations with them about, things happening in your department and all kinds of other things. So that's really helpful. Also, in addition to that, you might want to try to get a mentor that's in field. In our college these days, that's part of the hiring process. We actually set everybody up with an in-college mentor. So that's an important idea. So getting yourself some mentors, getting yourself some people to talk to about this is an important thought. Okay, so bug them. They were there once, they all understand. Okay, trust and believability. Okay, there are 3 parts of trust and believability. How I look, what I say, and how I sound. Okay, now if you were to take these 3 ideas and make them into a pie chart, which one do you think for trust and believability would be the top, or the biggest part of the pie? What you say? Okay, what I say. How many of you agree with that, what I say? Okay, you certainly want to believe it, we're professors, right? Okay, what would be second? Look. Okay. Look.
I think how I sound is the most important.
Okay, you think how I sound is, okay, let's see. Okay, some research was done way long time ago, but it's funny how it's really used a lot in training. Visual, 55%. Vocal, 35%. Oh, words that you say 7%. That's really long. But you can imagine. So I come in, new professor, making a presentation, and I say, I'm so happy to be here today. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Are you out there? Okay, let's move on. You know, so instantly the visual and the vocal take precedent. How many of you ride the bus? I ride the bus. How many times do you get up and move? It's like, ooh, you know, I'm going over here. So we do that. We can't help that. We just do that. You know, it's natural. It's a protection to be able to look at somebody and evaluate them quickly. I had an interesting experience at a conference that I went to. I went to this presentation, and this guy looked so scruffy, I couldn't believe it. His shirt was hanging out, he was really, really scruffy with a scruffy beard. And I thought, why am I sitting in this session? It looks like really interesting. And I hardly listened to him at first. And then the young lady that was with him, that was all, you know, perfectly professional, started talking, and I, you know, got into it. And I realized how brilliant this guy was. I mean, absolutely brilliant. But I really wasn't giving him the time of day. And after a while, I mean, we became friends. But it was, you know, it was really tentative. And one of the interesting things, I'm going to give you a link to the Chronicle of Higher Education. And it talks about being hired in a place. And actually, what people wear is probably the largest topic of conversation when committees get together to hire people. So it really is kind of interesting. So when you lack visual and you lack vocal, the words that you say don't get heard. And the same thing, I think, happens with your dossier. If it really doesn't read well, and all of you were admitting when you were looking at these CVs, you were kind of going, hey, you know, is this person really competent? Are they competent to lead research if they're so badly organized? Are they competent to lead a classroom if they can't even spell check? You know, so that's why it becomes so important to make sure the visual part, and for you, of course, the vocal is how you frame whatever you're saying in your dossier. So it becomes very important. Okay, so let's look at CV style. Okay, by the way, it's not a newsletter. Just in case you wanted to know. It's very traditional. It's very sophisticated. It's complete but not padded. If you notice, some of those dossiers actually have things repeated, so you want to do that. Okay. It's very self-focused. That's the point. And it's error-free, so correct content, correct spelling, and correct grammar. I had a student come up and ask me after one of these, he said, you know, the professor I'm working with, and I published an article, and his name is first, but I did most of the work. When I do my CV, should I put my name first? And I went, no, absolutely not. You know, no way. Always be correct. You can describe that in the dossier. You can talk about your role, or, you know, you can do that in your cover letter, but certainly never do anything that's incorrect. Because sometimes, and I've been on those committees where they look things up, you know, they go an accuracy check if there's any doubt. Okay? So good visual design, we're going to talk about what that means. Okay? So your format, put your name and page number on every page with the header, with your name and page of pages. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. And the reason that you do that, even if you take it to Kinko's or you have, you know, your secretary of students assistants copy it, there have been times where we get things that somebody goes, well, on page 30, and you go, page 30, well, I don't have 30 pages. I have 23 pages. You've got 30 pages? You know, and so if the person that's, you know, leading the review on yours only has 26 pages, that's a problem. Okay. Altogether. You want to do it reverse chronological, so your newest stuff should come first. Okay. And you want to group your relevant headers. Now, this is where your CV will probably take a turn from mine. And the reason is because my CV is designed for my work. So yours will be a little bit different. And then use the style of your academic area. In my area, we use something called APA, American Psychological Association. Some of you might use Chicago, Turabian, or something else I've never heard of. Okay, so use the style that you use for most of your articles. It's usually what's acceptable. Okay, so let's just take a look at mine. Kind of my older one. Okay, so there's page of pages. And you can do that automatically. You really should use in your word processing software the automatic thing for that. Because if you put in that number of pages yourself, and as it changes, if you forget to do that, then it'll go page 39 of 20. You know, and you go, what? Okay, so make sure that you use that automatic feature. Okay, so here are some of the titles that I use. Grants, one of them. Okay. And people ask, why do you put money in there? Why do you put the amount of money? And for me, I did that because in travel grants, they always ask you how much you got and where. Like I said, this is my filing cabinet. So I went ahead and did that. Otherwise, every time I ask for a travel grant, I have to pull out all those papers. It's so much easier just to copy and paste it. Now, certain kinds of situations, I might delete those, okay, and others, I keep it. So it's up to you whether you think it's appropriate or not, but it was really helpful for me. Now, this is my original grant, my original papers, not the ones I do now. All right, let's see. So you always want to make sure you have your name, address, phone, fax, website, those kinds of things. Okay, but you start with your degrees, majors, institutions, date, and whether you have a postdoc or not. You want to put your professional positions, not all jobs. Believe it or not, one time I was a can-can girl at Ghost Town in the Sky, and that was when I was a theater major. It was a lot of fun, but that's not on my vita right now. Now, if I would have applied in theater, it would be, okay? But for the job I have now, that's not a relevant position. Okay? Licenses, like say you have a real estate license or a medical license or something else, you can put those. Any kind of honors and awards, and even though they aren't up front, I have them underneath my professional position, so I have a small number of those. But I don't have the professional organizations, like you said, they're in the back. So the bibliography would include publications, grants, presentations, as well as works in progress. Okay, so this.
Can I?
Sure.
So,
Please.
the list that you showed is the order of the receiving. So honors should go before the Bible.
This is the order of my CV. Okay. Again, you have to decide what CV works in your particular department. It should probably be the same. She's for my work. Yeah, I can imagine it would be the same.
Actually, I have another question. Sure. There was a slide too before you move forward. So I see the textbook series.
Okay. That was because I'm an instructional designer. And so I created this textbook series. So as a designer,
all the series.
yeah. And it used to be that I had them all listed separately, but yeah, now actually my newer CV, this is my older one, it's only 7 pages. Back then I used to list them separately, but now because my vita is too long already, I just put it as one and I just say how many there are. But back then I was looking for a little more list. So that's my, okay, those through these. Okay. All right. So here, like I was talking about, your email and what they do and such, and then your degrees, and your professional positions. This is my more current one. You can see that currently I'm a professor. I was department chair. So even your positions here, you should probably list. Yes.
In the pagination in the upper part, is that page 1 of 7, or is that not on the first page?
Generally, you don't put it on the first page because the first page is kind of obvious. You start with your pagination. Good point. You start with it on the second page. So what you want to do in these is describe what you do in those positions. So as you get promoted, you keep, kind of changing things. And you can say, so you can put the dates of those and then the address of the department. And so, for example, if you use this to get a national grant, they will see this. So again, every time I change anything or, do anything, get a promotion, I want to change my data, even in-house.
So it sounds like you don't want to duplicate content, but I suspect a lot of the content in the description is elsewhere, like the courses you teach, the service you do. So do you really need that description?
Actually, for me, it's not. Okay, so I don't put that. This is sort of my duties as a faculty member. So this is 9 months instructional faculty, includes teaching, research, and service. Courses it has a little bit of courses, but they're explained elsewhere. This is just a really quick summary. And so if they just look at these, what she's doing now, this gives a real brief description. I wouldn't call that padded, though, in this case. It's just a description of the position. Okay, so here's how I do professional honors. So that's like right after my professional position. And then here, you can see I separate it. Now, if you don't have as many, generally, you don't break it up into so many, but I wanted to have edited books and book chapters. And then I start with my research articles, and I actually divide things, because I have enough now to make divisions of it.
What's the order of operations for that? If you have a book, what goes to the top, and then what follows sequentially? What's more important?
It depends on your department and what's considered the most important in your department. To me, I think that books, books are a major kind of publication. So I have them before articles. So I have it over to trying to make sure I get. What time are we in?
Oh, 1:15.
Oh, I'm right.
Probably
Okay.
some people have appointments,
Yeah,
exams.
I just wanted to make sure. That's fine. Okay, so it depends. Again, I would check and see how people do that in your particular field. Okay, in terms of content, things like courses taught, service, local, national, international, and then also note that you're a leader. I'll show you that in a minute. Partnerships, if relevant, partnerships became a real big deal in education in the last few years, so I put those if I developed those partnerships. Professional development, and so you can put this series, by the way, so you could add that, and languages and travel. And so courses, what I do with courses, I kind of start a little bit with the description that's in the catalog, but not really. I try to, describe it as my own course and what they do in my particular course. So I put those in there. And for service, I also put, if I am invited to professional presentations, workshops, or conferences. So these things I always put in there, so you'll see those in there. And then service. You have to have some way of putting leadership in a number of committees. If maybe you were only leader of one committee, you might just put an asterisk or say what kind of position you held in the committee. Can I ask a question about that? Sure.
So for workshops, I was thinking workshops would go into professional development.
It depends on whether you present them or not. If it's workshops that you go to like this one, you would put it under professional development. I would put it under a presentation. Okay. Depends on which side of the fence you're on. Okay, so you want to avoid personal information, things like age, marital status, health, ethnicity, and pictures. And when I say pictures, I'll give you an example. I was looking at a friend's dossier, and somebody in our department, and I noticed that there was a picture of him. He was going up for full professor. I said, if I were you, I'd take this picture out. There might be some people on that committee that think you're too young to go up for full, even though I know you just look young, but I know that you've got everything you need to go up for full. So he took it out. But somebody got sneaky and went to his website, and they saw his picture. And sure enough, he ended up struggling, and he won in the end, but they saw his picture and he went down. It was like, really, I couldn't even believe that happened. But it does. And people don't mean to be biased, they just come with those biases. So everything you can do to avoid those biases for yourself, it's a good idea. Okay? If you are not a citizen, if you are a citizen but you come from somewhere else, you might want to put that, or your resident status or visa status, if that's relevant. Okay? Again, I would talk to people like your department chair and see what they think about that. You also want to be politically correct, again, to avoid any kind of discrimination, anything like political activism, religion, or other personal information. However, if you're in the religion department, then it's perfectly okay, or if you are in a particular area, like political science or something else, that might be relevant.
Is a position on UPA or something considered political activism, advocacy like that?
I would not think so. I mean, I think we all end up with that duty every once in a while. I've never really seen that. I think...
Would that be considered a strike against you?
I don't think so, because the people reviewing you are faculty. Yeah, so I don't think so. Maybe even administration, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think that was a problem. But there might be other things that would be. So just have to be careful. Again, having a mentor, having somebody to vet these things with is important. Now, another idea that you might not know about is to leave some white space. Some of the things about those other videos that you saw, they're really crowded and packed with stuff, and a lot of you commented that it was overwhelming. So you have to kind of figure that out. One way to do it is to use shorter paragraphs, okay, not long paragraphs. You want to avoid any kind of heavy lines. Once we got computers, everybody started putting boxes around things, so you want to avoid borders. The least read is over here. It's considered unimportant. And the most read is the bottom right. If you look at cancer warnings in magazines, you often find them over here, or you find your eye being led away from them. Okay, so it's just something that's good to remember. So when I put some things on my video, like you'll see the date that I published it or the date that I updated it will always be over here at the bottom page. Okay, so text layout, using a 2/3, 1/3 format is a really nice structure. Okay, what that means is headers over here and body over here. Now, when I get to my bibliography, I don't do that as much. I do give a little bit more space, but not a lot. Or you can also use 2 columns. You can achieve this with table formatting. You want to avoid using tabs. I got a paper turned into me yesterday, and I was really surprised to find out every line was tabbed over. That's a nightmare when you want to change anything. So the first thing you should learn to do is you learn to do tables in your Vita. So you learn to do tables. You don't really see them because they don't have lines, but every major entry in those job positions, each of those was a cell in the table. Okay. So when you look at this it's 2 columns. That's one cell, that's another. And so if I ever want to just delete something or pick it up and move it, it makes it really easy. Okay. So you see here's a little bit alternate, 2/3, 1/3. And this one's a 2/3, 1/3. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about legibility and readability. These are 2 different concepts. Legibility has to do with how well I can see something or pick something up. So headers, for example, are what you want to be legible. Readable, of course, is how easy and efficient it is to read something. Okay, that has a lot to do with fonts. So serif fonts have thin lines and feet. And sans serif fonts have even lines and no feet. And those make a difference for certain reasons, okay? Serif fonts are generally thought to be easier to read in printed text. So I always require my students turn things in serif font. Now there's some debate about this, but they did some early studies using eye scan cameras and found that people's eyes scanned more quickly across when they had serif fonts. And that really has to do with those little feet because it makes it kind of like cursive. However, sans serif fonts are a lot more legible in projected media. And I can't tell you how many presentations that I've been to that people use Times Roman and really small fonts, and they're very difficult to read. So generally, you want to use this for your legibility. Okay. So serif fonts are things like Palatino, Times, and Courier, sans serif, Geneva, Arial, and Helvetica. And this presentation is mostly this time in Arial.
Can you go back just 1 second?
This is also going to be posted on the website. So there you go. These look almost all the same. I generally choose Arial because it's cross-platform. And so if I go somewhere and I have to use the thumb drive to insert my presentation, it usually is easily transferable. Okay, so with legibility, things like your headers, so having bold sans serif for section headers, using small caps rather than all caps. All caps tend to scream at you and they're harder to read. Again, it's that high-scan camera, the idea that it's all a straight line. And we use caps for certain things like, the beginning of a sentence or a proper noun. So they're things that we psychologically are looking for. Small caps look like this. You can usually set that automatically. I'm not sure. Okay, so serif for large blocks of printed text. So your dossier would probably do that. Using 7 to 10 words per line. If your line is too long, you go way over in your eye scan back. Okay, that's why the 2/3, 1/3 works well. Okay. And consider people over 40. There'll be a lot of us on your committee. So 12 points is best. 11 points is really sneaky because it looks a lot like 12 points, but you can shrink it a little bit. 10 points is about the smallest you can go, and that's what I now use online because it's so long. Okay, so let's take a look. So you can see my headers are all in sans serif, whereas my text is in serif. Okay, so anywhere I have a block of text. And it makes for a nice look. Okay. Readability. Okay, so you want to avoid centering. Centering is for poetry. Also for titles. Avoid full justification. Again, with the advent of computers, everybody wants to put everything in straight lines on both sides. The problem is, again, using iScan cameras, they found that you lose your place a lot more often because that ragged right actually tells you where you are. So I won't let my students full justify unless they're doing certain kinds of things. So use ragged right. Okay. Avoid using sentence construction. Like slashes and parentheses. Somebody mentioned that earlier, that there were so many parentheses in there. It makes people read twice. So if you have like dogs and you have a parentheses, people have to read it for dog and dog, so it's a lot less efficient. Leaving out articles like A and B, especially in bulleted lists. We're really uncomfortable when words are left out. We don't really see them, but it kind of makes you miserable because you think something's wrong and you read it several times. Use shorter paragraphs. I know that all the people that teach English in here are probably horrified that you don't use a topic sentence and everything is absolutely correct. But shorter paragraphs give you more white space, especially, by the way, when you're writing an email. I make really short paragraphs. Otherwise, people don't read things. Okay. And then avoid using too many bullet lists, especially in your dossier. It's so boring to read. You can use a few of them, for efficiency's sake, but don't make your whole dossier a set of bullets. Okay, also use consistent structure. If you don't know what this means, you may want to go look it up, but try to be grammatically parallel. In other words, you use the same verb type. So, in other words, don't mix them up, like use, listing, and describes. Don't mix those up. So when you're doing those job descriptions, keep it the same. Okay. Also, you want to be conceptually parallel, and this is particularly important when you're choosing your subtitles. So making sure that you are in the same classification level. Acronyms. So tell me, what does DOE mean? Okay. For some people in the room, it's Department of Energy. For other people, it's Department of Education. And whenever you move anywhere, did anybody feel like that when they moved here, like it's alphabet soup? Isn't that horrible? I still don't know what a lot of the things mean. So be really careful of acronyms. Make sure you do them properly. Make sure you define them. Okay, so first spell them out and make sure you define them first. But if you can avoid them in your dossier, unless you're going to use it a lot, I would spell them out. Okay? And then avoid Latin abbreviations in the formal text, except for your citations. Okay, so motivation. You want to keep it clear, clean, simple, and traditional. Okay. You want to avoid more than 3 fonts, and if you use a lot of italics, you want to count that as a font. Okay. A good thing to do is use 2-sided copying. Besides saving paper, it doesn't look as big, so when your committee gets it, they'll go, oh, I'll take that one. I mean, you can't imagine how many times the really big one sits there. First of all, we've got to haul them all back to our offices. And so those really big ones are the last to be picked. Okay, avoid repeating any information. You can do it a little bit when it's summarized. I think there was a question about that. Oops. Use active verbs such as managed, taught, evaluated, rather than responsibilities include managed, teaching, and evaluating. Proofread meticulously. You know, if you start to look at my Vita that's in there, you'll still find mistakes. I try really, really hard, but those commas and periods and consistency get really hard. Get somebody else to look at it. Okay? So know your audience. Tailor the style and presentation to the purpose or position that you have. So your academic area, whether you're instructional, research, or specialist, that's important. Okay, so in how you frame that's going to be important. And then you just want to be the job. And you want that confidence to come through in your dossier and in your CV. So visualize what it's like to be in the next position. So visualize what it's like to be an associate professor or an associate specialist. Think about that and what it means. And it's interesting, where I got that is I had a cousin that was Miss USA and went to Miss Universe, and her coach told her that. He said that the winners are the ones that seem like they're already Miss Universe, not the ones that are trying to be. So it's that level of confidence that you have. So demonstrating that confidence is important. So you don't want to be the candidate, you want to be the winner. All right. So remember that good design is invisible. It will increase your image of professionalism. It will increase your own self-confidence. And it will increase their level of trust in you and increase their perceptions of your knowledge. You'll seem smarter. So I love this quote. What you say and how you say it, the visual appearance and physical presentation of your words all combine to form the reader's impression of you. And that's with the Chronicle of Higher Ed. And they have some wonderful things. It's called a CV Doctor. And so they have CVs of all different kinds of fields that you can look at. I think they even answer questions. I've got all kinds of neat articles. That's where I found one on dressing. It was really neat. I also have some other resources if you're interested in things having to do with visual design and the design process. You can go here. These I use for my visual design class. And then I also have created a series for the conference that I'm very involved in. And it's called How to Work a Conference to Make It Work for You. So if you go to conferences, this is a 5-part series. So it's about how to network at a conference. It's also, so there's these 5 pieces: strategic conferencing, intro to slideshows, guidelines for visuals 1 and 2, and presentation delivery. I've also done one on creating posters. So if you decide that you want to do a poster, I think these are good resources. They're relatively short, so you can get them in